Links to previous episodes are given in the video description, so don't forget to like, subscribe and share the video. The Haunt of Love and Lies. Episode 7. Chapter 56. Sheila's point of view. I vote against it, Killian said coldly. His words resounded in my ears. This can't be. I couldn't think clearly as my every thought fell on Devon. He just can't lose his life like this. I met Killian's cold stare. His dark amber eyes were pulled away from me and back to everyone else in the court. The prisoner has to die, Killian said again. I was frozen in my seat, rage seething through me. My furious gaze pierced at him, but Killian didn't even look my way. I don't know exactly what I was thinking about trusting him. What on earth was I expecting from him? Even though I didn't fully trust him to stand up for Devon, somewhere deep down a part of me hoped he would do it for me. But I was mistaken. This alpha was still very much heartless. Everyone has voted. And as usual, the majority wins. Killian leaned on the round table. Devon knows about the curse, making him a threat to us, and so he will be executed immediately. Killian sounded firm, and everyone nodded in agreement, leaving no room for further discussion. All the while, I didn't shift my eyes from Killian, and he intentionally avoided looking my way. You will be in charge, Morgan. Take care of his execution. He turned to Morgan, Alan, and Mason, then to everyone else. The meeting has ended. At his words, everyone was up from their seats and they began exiting the court. But I remained motionless in my seat, and so did Killian, until it was just the two of us within the court's corner walls. Why Killian? I said. Finally, Killian turned his eyes to me. I could see absolutely nothing in those eyes of his. Not even an ounce of guilt for what he did to me. This was the first time I had desperately wanted him to take my side, to help me. But he couldn't even do that. I felt my eyes sting with tears from the sudden pain I felt in my chest. Killian still didn't reply. Without uttering a word, I jerked up from my chair, walking away. But Killian grabbed my wrist, pulling me to a stop. Let go of me, Killian, I yelled, burning with so many emotions. Rage and pain stalked my veins. I snatched my hand away from him, moving away from him, but he held me again, turning me to face him. Sheila, calm down. He held me firmly to his body. Listen to me. He began, but I pushed myself away from his strong hold, my hand slamming hard against his cheek. Killian froze. His stare on me was completely void of all emotions as the sound of the slap kept echoing within the walls of the court. I don't want to hear anything you have to say, Killian. I was screaming, tears threatening to burst from my eyes. I begged you for just one thing, to help me save him, and now Devon will be executed. I hate you, Killian. I left him alone in the court, rushing to my chamber. As soon as I was in, I collapsed on the bed, allowing the tears I had fought back to fall. I felt a burning rage directed at Killian and immense pain. I don't know if it was from Killian's betrayal or the cold fact that Devon was being executed at this moment. And I couldn't save him. I buried my face in my palm, tearing up. I just couldn't hold my tears back. As soon as I was in, I collapsed on the bed, allowing the tears I had fought back to fall. I felt a burning rage directed at Killian and immense pain. I don't know if it was from Killian's betrayal or the cold fact that Devon was being executed at this moment. And I couldn't save him. I buried my face in my palm, tearing up. I just couldn't hold my tears back. It was way past midnight already. I could no longer hear the loud chatter of everyone and the merriment from the bonfires. It seemed like everyone had probably retired for the night. But I haven't, or rather still couldn't. I was still in bed. And I haven't moved a muscle from my position yet. I could feel the puffiness of my eyes already. Even my long lashes felt heavy and too tired. The door to my chamber was pulled open unexpectedly. My brows creased furiously as I lifted my head to find Killian's huge figure in the darkness. He was standing in the doorway, staring at me. "Can't you knock before barging into my chamber?" Every word I muttered held a certain rage brewing in my bones. I heard him sigh deeply as he leaned against the door. But he didn't take a step further inside. "Get dressed and come out now." His voice was cold. "I will, Killian." I yelled half. "Get out." I didn't move from my position on the bed. Even in the darkness, I felt Killian's eyes on me intensely. "It's not a request, Sheila," Killian voiced. "I will be waiting outside," he added, and was about to shut the door but paused suddenly. "Wear something warm. It's cold outside," and he jammed the door shut. Even after he left, I remained motionless on the bed. After some minutes, Ria walked in, informing me Killian had asked her to come to fetch me. She pleaded with me to come along. I grabbed my brown furry cloak from the rack, donning it over my dress. I left my chamber with Ria. Instead of going out through the main entrance doors, Ria led me through the back doors. We walked a little deeper into the woods until we came to a tall oak tree, where Killian was waiting in the darkness with a horse. Ria lowered her head towards him. "Thank you, Ria. You may leave now," he said, the moon's silver rays falling on him, revealing his beautiful face and his godlike body. At Killian's words, Ria left us immediately. Without speaking a word to me, he jumped on his horse, sending a hand out to me as his eyes bore down on me. "Where are we going?" I asked, not taking his hand. "You will find out soon," he said with his hand still in the air. "I'd prefer you to tell me first, Killian," I said, still not taking his hand. "Ah," he groaned, frustratedly. "By the goddess, you are impossible, Sheila. And you are not." I couldn't help the rage in my voice. "And you are not." I couldn't help the rage in my voice. "Just trust me and get on. That is the last thing I will ever do again, Killian." Killian was quiet for a second, like something in my words had hurt him. But I didn't care to ask, or even show the slightest bit of concern. He deserved every bit of pain he could get. "I want to show you something." His voice was calm and at the same time, serious. Very serious. I furrowed my gaze at him. But I didn't say anything. Reluctantly, I gripped his hand, and Killian helped me up on the horse. I adjusted myself behind him, tugging on my cloak as the cold began to lash against my skin. "Hold on tight." He tilted his head sideways at me. "You know I won't," I muttered, looking away from his soft blonde hair and his gorgeous back. I concentrated my gaze on the boring trees standing tirelessly in the woods. Killian held onto the reins of the horse, and we rode off. Killian moved at such an insane speed on the horse that I was forced to grab onto his waist. We moved past some familiar routes that I recognized led out of the capital. "Where are we going?" I asked behind him. "We are almost there," was his reply. After a few more minutes of riding, we pulled up to a familiar place. The cottage. I came down from the horse. Killian followed suit. My eyes scanned around, finally dwelling on Killian. "Why are we here?" I asked. Killian didn't reply as he moved the horse to a tree and tied the horse to the tree. Before I could ask again, the door of the cottage pulled open. I shook my head and went to the door. Alan walked out the door and over to us. "Alan, what are you doing here?" Alan stopped before me. His eyes moved from me to Killian, who was a few feet away, unsure whether or not to answer my question. "Thank you, Alan. We will talk back at the pack." Killian strode toward us. Alan nodded, sending me a small smile before sauntering into the woods, where he transformed into his brown wolf. He sprinted off. The fact that no one was answering my question was already pissing me off. My blue eyes were on Killian. "Tell me exactly what we are doing here, Killian." He exhaled, stepping closer to me so that I could feel the sparks now flying around us. "Gladly." The truth is, the door of the cottage jerked open, cutting Killian off. Killian's head swerved to the door, and I followed his trail. Instantly, my eyes bulged, and my lips parted. I could not hide the confusion, as well as the surprise in my eyes at the sight I never thought I'd ever see again. Sheila's point of view, I was completely speechless. My eyes went from Killian back to the figure standing in front of the cottage door. "Devon!" I called in a whisper. This was impossible. He was supposed to be dead. The sentence had been handed down by Killian and the court. What was this? My lips broke into a surprised smile. I couldn't hide the elation that was rooted in my gaze. I kicked my legs in motion, rushing to Devon. As soon as I was next to him, I sprawled my hands around him, embracing him. He groaned, placing a hand on his ribs. "Easy there. I am still healing," he muttered, jokingly. "How? I thought you were." I couldn't even bring myself to say the word. I actually didn't expect to see him again, well and alive. Dead. Devon completed it when I struggled with the word. I nodded my head to him. "Frankly, I thought I would be. Alan and 2 other warriors brought me here. They told me that I'd be safe here, and the Alpha ordered it," Devon said, his eyes moving past me to Killian. I swerved around. My blue eyes were now on Killian. He was basking under the moon's light, his arms crossed on his chest, as he kept watching us. "He saved me," Devon said beside me, bringing my attention back to him. I could feel my eyes glisten with tears. I wrapped my hands around him again, embracing him tightly. But it didn't last long as I heard Killian clear his throat from behind us. Devon cautiously pulled away from me. But I didn't even glance Killian's way. "What are you going to do now?" I asked him, knowing full well that my father would still be after him. He has to leave North Central immediately. Everyone in the pack thinks he's dead. He will be going west. I have some friends there that would take him in, at least he won't be a rogue. Killian sounded from behind. I turned to Killian, listening to him. I couldn't quell the euphoria threatening to explode within me at Killian's words. Yeah, I think it would be best if I left North Central. There's literally nothing here for me. Devon spoke up. Take care, I whispered to him, embracing him once more, ignoring the subtle growls vibrating from Killian. Thank you, Sheila, he said as we pulled apart. I shook my head. Frankly, he shouldn't be thanking me. There is nothing for you to thank me for. I did nothing to help. My vote couldn't even save you. I was supposed to be executed tonight, but I am still alive, aren't I? And I am sure you had something to do with my freedom. Devon said, looking at Killian thankfully, before walking away. Take care. I couldn't stop the tears that fell slowly from my eyes as I watched him move deeper into the woods. I felt Killian's warm presence behind me. Ahem. He clears his throat behind me again, causing me to turn to him. I felt Killian's warm presence behind me. Ahem. He clears his throat behind me again, causing me to turn to him. I couldn't quite see his face through my teary eyes. Before I could wipe my eyes, I felt Killian's large hand on my face, his thumb brushing away the tears on my cheeks, up to my eyes. When he was done, I pulled away, taking a step back to evade Killian's enticing musky scent. Why? Why did you help him? As lame as it may sound, I was curious. Obviously, Killian didn't give a asterisk about Devon. In fact, he made it clear to me that he hated him. So why did he save him? Curiosity was killing me. Even though a part of me was hoping he did it for me. Another part, a far greater part, doubted it. Killian took a step closer to me, which made me take 2 more steps backward. I needed answers, and having this man so close to me was dangerous. It was very dangerous as I kept fighting against the urge to pull him in for a kiss. Answer me, I said, trying to keep my true emotions out of my voice. Killian still didn't say a word. His eyes were deep and somewhat intense. As he neared me, I took a step backward without realizing I had already stepped into the cottage. Killian moved inside, gently closing the door behind him. I could now see his face clearly, as the cottage was illuminated with burning torches that made the inside warm. Tell me, Killian, why did you save him? Just because, he muttered. I creased my brows, retreating back as he kept moving closer to me. Just because. Isn't it obvious, Sheila? He spoke softly, moving closer to me. As I tried to move backward, my back stopped against the wall, and Killian was now before me, both of his hands resting on the wall behind me while imprisoning me in his arms. I did it for you, Sheila. Frankly, I don't give a f**k about your friend. But you wanted him spared, and so I spared him. I felt a swell in my chest at Killian's words, which just couldn't stop echoing in my ears. He did it for me. All for me. I really wanted to hide the smile so eager to surface on my lips, but I couldn't. I felt so happy that I wanted him to know. I pressed my lips together. "Thank you," I said softly, as Killian leaned closer to me, his brows crippling. "Thank you?" he asked, confusing me more. "That's it," he said, smiling. His smile was so beautiful. This was the first time I saw Killian smile, at least when around me. "Sheila, I had to lie to my pack for you. It wasn't easy bossing around the warriors just so Devon would leave the pack unnoticed. How easy do you think it is to fake someone's death?" he asked, whispering. I could taste his sweet breath on my tongue. I was fighting the urge to moan as Killian's body pressed hard against mine. "So, what do you want from me?" I asked, lifting my head a little so our noses could touch. Killian's clear amber eyes turned dark quickly. He withdrew his hand from the wall and it fell on both sides of my waist. "For starters, a kiss would suffice," he whispered across my lips, naughtily. His words caused my lips to stretch in a smile. I snaked my hands around his neck, allowing my fingers to get into his hair. His blonde locks were so soft and silky. "I guess you do deserve a reward," I said softly, before crashing my lips against his soft ones. Killian kissed me back softly, his hands moving on my waist, bringing me deeper into his body. Soon, I pulled away. Killian was panting heavily. His eyes were completely dark with desire. "Sheila," he groaned, against my lips. His fingers moved to my face, brushing back the locks of my brown hair behind my ears. His lips began to assault my face, placing sweet kisses on my face, trailing down to my neck. He stopped in the crook of my neck, sucking on my neck. I tugged on his hair, moaning at the wonders he was doing to my neck. It was making my body hot. I was burned with intense emotions. I could feel myself turning on. My hands slipped down to Killian's chest, bringing his lips to mine. But I wasn't satisfied. I wanted more. I pushed him to the bed. I wanted nothing more right now than to feel his hands on me. To feel him inside of me. Killian was on the bed staring at me teasingly with dark and lustful eyes. I climbed up on him. His hands were on my sides, walking up to my breast. Slowly, his hands found their way to the ropes binding my cloak around me. He pulled it off of me. I brought my lips to him and kissed him with so much passion. I backed away just a little, bringing my lips to his neck where I placed sweet, torturous kisses just as he did to me. Then I moved away from him and removed the leather jacket he had on. After that, I went for his shirt, pulling it over his head. I pushed him deeper onto the bed so that he fell on his elbow. My hands found their way to his trousers, and I began to unbutton them. I pulled it down, leaving just his underpants. Killian's eyes were dark, watching me closely as I went for his underpants and pulled them down. His eyes widened, but he didn't move nor utter a single word. He pressed down on the bed, feeling my heated eyes trail up from his lustful gaze to his huge member that was already begging and craving my touch. A small, naughty smile found my lips. "I will show you just how grateful I am, mate," I whispered so sensually that it earned me a moan from Killian. Killian's point of view, I could feel my breathing getting harder with every passing second. Sheila's eyes turned darker, and her sweet arousal made me go hard. Her beautiful, brilliant blue eyes moved from my dark, wishful stare down to my rock-hard member. A naughty smile dominated her lips. "I will show you just how grateful I am, mate," she whispered so sensually that I could not stop the moan that left my lips. She grabbed my hardened member and began stroking it. I pulled my head back and moaned. "Sheila! That feels so good." I gripped the bed tightly. Then I felt her tongue around the tip of my member. All I could do was moan when she put me all in her mouth. She began bobbing her head up and down. I can feel the build-up in my lower abdomen. I know she knows it. Sheila bobbed her head faster and kept stroking my shaft at the same time. I felt delirious with all the pleasure she was giving me. I have never felt so alive before. Only she manages to get me like this. She stood up, taking a step away from me. I was still caught up in the bubble of pleasure and couldn't understand anything. Sheila had a triumphant smile on her face, and slowly, she started taking off her clothes. All I want is to see her body. When her dress fell on the floor, I took my time feasting on her body. She was perfect. I grabbed her hand and pulled her down on the bed. She looked down at me and smirked. She straddled me and kissed my lips. We kissed passionately. Our tongues fought for dominance, as we explored each other's mouths. I began to kiss her neck down to her neck of her beautiful skin. "Ah! Killian," she moaned. Her sweet moans were driving me crazy. I gripped her and then flipped us over on the bed. "You were a naughty mate, teasing me with that body of yours," I whispered in a deep husky voice. She smirked gorgeously and pulled me down for a kiss. I trailed my kisses down to her jaw, her neck, and the valley of her chest. She arched her back to me and grabbed my hair. I reached my climax and also felt her sweet ecstasy. That was exactly what I felt. The pleasure was so tremendous and pure. I kissed her once more and pulled out from her. I fell next to her. "Oh goddess, Sheila, you are beautiful," I said, pulling the sheets over us. She smiled and pulled me in for a kiss. I scooped her into my arms. Now I laid on my back and her head rested on my chest. I wrapped my hands securely around hers. "Did you enjoy it?" she asked softly, making me look into her eyes. I chuckled. "Yes, love." "Good. Because only I can make you feel this way." "Satisfied?" she voiced, and I kissed her on the temple. "Killian," Sheila called gently. "What?" I asked. She studied me quietly, as if contemplating speaking or not. My large hand caressed her cheek. "Tell me, mark me, Killian," she said gently. I sighed, pulling up a little as my hold on her body tightened. "I want to." "You have no idea how badly I want to. But not right now. Not until the curse is broken. If I mark you now, you will become an official member of my pack, hence, you will also suffer from the curse." I explained to her. I really didn't want her to think I didn't want to mark her as mine. I wanted to so badly. But I just can't right now. Sheila pressed her warm body against mine, kissing me. "I will wait," she muttered. I pulled her closer, feeling the softness of her body, kissing her so intensely. Third person's point of view. She held on tightly to the tree, her long nails digging hard into it as she stared at the cottage dressed in a black cloak. She could hear the loud moans and whispers of the she-wolf, the alpha's mate, as the alpha kept pleasuring her body. She was filled with rage. Her brown eyes glowed angrily. She hated this. She hated their sudden closeness. Her entire plan was disrupted the second that she-wolf rammed into the alpha's life. And now that she was using the power of the mate bond to worm her way into the alpha's life, she can't let that happen. Her brown eyes burned ragingly, as the sensual whispers and deafening moans of pleasure escaped from the cottage. Even the darkness could feel the intensity of her fury. That alpha wasn't supposed to get that close to that her. She could feel her plans slowly shattering if she doesn't do something soon. Those two should never be together. At least, not until her revenge is finally complete. She would send both the alpha and her exactly where they belonged. She took several breaths in an attempt to quell her raging heart, but it was of no use. She had done a lot to get to where she was and didn't want to back out just yet. She even had to use that worthless wolf, Rowan, just so the alpha would have to kill his mate with his own hands, but that didn't happen. It only made everything worse, and the useless wolf was caught. She had to finish him off before he could expose her. Every plan of hers to get the alpha to murder his mate with his own hands were useless. That would be his greatest punishment, to have her die by his hands, just the way he murdered everyone precious to her, and she won't stop until she avenges their deaths. Even on that night, after lifting the boundary spell the witch, Valerie, placed on the entrance of the cave, she used her magic to fuel the demon inside of him, giving the demon enough power to take control of the alpha's body. She had expected a bloodbath and, hopefully, in the process murdering his very own mate. But that still didn't happen. She sighed disappointedly. The crescent moon's rising was only a month away. Before those wolves put an end to the curse, her entire plans need to be carried out first. The woman smiled to herself. They won't see her coming. But in the meantime, she had to put a stop to whatever was going on between the alpha and the she-wolf. And she knew exactly what to do. The woman smiled evilly, brushing her silken black hair. She placed the hood of her cloak over her black hair. Her brown eyes returned one last time to the cottage. Enjoy now, Killian. Because soon, the only thing you will experience is pain, starting from the death of the WH0RE in your arms. The woman snickered evilly, walking back into the woods, and slowly she faded into the darkness. Killian's point of view. Sheila and I returned back to the pack as early as the first light of dawn. I accompanied her to her chamber, feeling so unwilling to leave her. But I had to. I had a council meeting today, and also, Morgan and I had a meeting with a neighboring pack to settle some pending matters. My hands danced on her waist, pulling her in for a kiss. Go on, Killian. I have to shower, Sheila said, pulling away from me. That doesn't sound like a bad idea. I could help you shower, I said, sauntering to where she was standing at the door. But she stopped me, chuckling lightly. Oh, goddess! Even the sound of her laughter was beautiful. No, Killian. Go now. I really mean it, she said, trying to keep a serious tone, but was failing from the sparkle in her eyes. Fine. I am going, all right, I said, pecking her lips once more. I went straight to my chamber and stripped off my clothes. Immediately, I showered and got dressed in fresh clean clothes. I was fastening my boots when the door opened gently, and Thea walked in. I lifted my head, watching her as she sauntered to the bed where I was. Her lips crashed on mine. I pulled away before it deepened. Is there something wrong? I questioned. She furrowed her brows. Killian, must something be wrong before I come into your chamber? She vented in her soft voice but was not yelling. Where were you last night? I came to your chamber but you weren't in. Her soft brown eyes scanned me. I was out. I had an important matter to tend to. I was done fastening my boots. I pulled up from the bed, and Thea followed me up. I went to the rack and grabbed my jacket. Killian, she called softly behind me. Her hand gripped my arm, forcing me to swerve around. My amber pear fell directly into her brown eyes. Is something wrong? Her question made the skin around my forehead crease in confusion. Before I could speak, she spoke again. Did I do something wrong? She asked again. Her voice was now breaking, and instantly tears gathered in her eyes. It broke me. I dropped the jacket in my hand, reaching out to her immediately. I wiped away the tears rushing down her cheeks. Why would you ask such a thing? Because I don't understand why you have been avoiding me. Tears rushed down her eyes again. Her words caused a churn within me. I didn't think that she would realize I was deliberately keeping my distance from her these last few weeks. That's not true. Nonetheless, I say, wiping away her tears. It is, Killian. And you know it. She pulled away from my grip, stepping a few steps backward. You have been distant. You barely even say a word to me. Her words came out in between sobs. She wrapped her hands around her arms. It's almost as if you don't care about me anymore. Killian, I am worried about you. With everything going on with the curse and the crescent moon rising, which is near, I am scared for you, Killian. I feel this terrifying pain in my chest that just won't go away. I am terrified, Killian, and I don't want any harm to come to you. I will die if something bad ever happens to you. She broke further into tears. I rushed to her, engulfing her in my arms. I hated to see her in such a state, and all because of me. Nothing will happen to me, Thea. I gently kissed her forehead. Killian, if I lose you, I swear by the goddess I will die. You know very well that you are all I have, Killian. It's better to be dead than to live my life without you. Thea's last words pierced my heart. I didn't like her words. It caused me unspeakable pain. Your life shouldn't end because of me, Thea. Whatever happens, you must be able to live without me. I can't. And I refused to. Your entire existence is my life and purpose, Killian. I can never be apart from you or I will die. I sighed, not saying anything further. This was going to be harder than I thought. I didn't want to hurt Thea, but if she remains by my side, she will get hurt. I held her in my arms for a while before pulling away. I have a meeting. I will see you when I get back. She nodded sadly. I pecked her lips, grabbing my jacket. And together, we left my chamber. I left Thea in her chamber, heading outside the castle to where Gwen and Valerie should be waiting for me. To my surprise, I found Sheila with Morgan, saddling their horses. "Where are you going with her?" I shot at Morgan. He sent an unconcerned look my way. "To the neighboring pack. We should get business done with them immediately, and Sheila will be accompanying me." "We were supposed to go together," I said. "You have a council meeting to attend, so Sheila and I will take care of this. Do not worry, brother." Now I am worried when he says it like that. I am very worried. Honestly, I don't like those two together. "Well then, you'll have to go after the council meeting." "What do you mean?" Morgan looked down at me from his horse. "You are coming with us," I said, getting on my horse. Morgan's brows were crippled in a frown, regarding me. "I'll pass." "No. You have to be there, Morgan. I need you there. Today's meeting is really important." Morgan groaned but remained silent. "So, what now? Are we still heading out?" Sheila asked, her eyes moving from me to Morgan. "It seems not. When we get back, we can go," Morgan said. "You could come along with us." I turned to her, watching her eyes widen. "To the council?" she repeated. I nodded. "And after that, we could all head to the next meeting." A small smile found her sweet lips. We waited for Valerie and Gwen to join us before riding off. Sheila's point of view, our horses rode past the crystalline pillars standing on both sides of a long bridge. For a moment, the fresh yet cool winter breeze plucked at my hair. I lifted my face and inhaled deeply. There was a beautiful calmness in the air. I tilted my head to my left, where Killian was. "Where exactly are we going?" "To the mountains. The council was built in the mountains centuries ago to keep humans far away," he replied while I nodded. After what felt like hours, the mountains finally came into view. We passed through a small village before our horses halted in front of a gigantic white gate. The words "the council" were boldly imprinted on the stone walls. My eyes widened in awe as the gate opened. It was all white and beautiful. From afar, I could see a massive castle. My eyes widened further. It was the biggest structure I had ever set my eyes on. Even under the bright sunlight, it looked beautiful. The entire castle was crystalline white, everything except the windows, which were crystal bright yellow. We moved closer on our horses, coming to a halt in front of the castle. I came down from my horse. Some warriors approached us and took our horses away. "The meeting will start soon," Killian said, as he swerved to my side. "Fine. In the meantime, Gwen and I will take a look around." "We can, right?" Killian nodded. "Yes, you can," he said as I watched him, Valerie, and Morgan walk through the tall castle doors. We then explored the castle grounds. At a far distance, near the mountains, what seemed like 100 warriors or more were training. Each had swords in their hands, and they were fighting against each other in pairs. They are the council armies, consisting of each supernatural kind, she informed me. We moved on and kept exploring further as more members of the council walked into the castle for the meeting. I was alone now, strolling further away from the castle when I collided with a figure, almost falling. "I apologize." The voice spoke, steadying me, and my eyes went up to his face. A pair of brilliant blue eyes found mine. His gaze was fixed on me, filled with shock and possibly disbelief. His hand pulled up to touch me, but before he could, a loud growl erupted behind us. "Get away from her, Leonardo Black!" I heard Killian's thundering yell, and the man, Leonardo, froze, his eyes reluctantly leaving mine for Killian's, and with the man's hand almost on me, I was jerked away behind Killian's huge figure. And as quickly, as Morgan was beside Killian, their entire bodies radiating with a murderous rage. Sheila's point of view, Leonardo Black, as in, brother to Kaiser Black. I remained rooted behind Killian, but my eyes didn't leave the man. Frankly, he wasn't anything like his brother, Kaiser. There were more differences between them in appearance than similarities. He had dark brown hair and piercing blue eyes, while Kaiser had black hair and deep hazel eyes. He also had a calm, yet intimidating aura that radiated power. Gwen joined us, as she stood beside me. Her eyes scanned from Killian to Morgan and finally fell on Leonardo. She tilted her head at him a little. The man, Leonardo Black, stood firmly on his leather boots. His eyes moved from Killian to Morgan and then fell on me, standing behind Killian. "If you value your life as much as I do, Leonardo, you will stay away from her," Killian uttered, counting his words, but one could easily note the rage seething through his throat. The man's gaze lingered intensely on me. There weren't any single emotions embedded in them, as he regarded me. I couldn't help but cringe a little at his stare. It wasn't out of fear, but something else. Something I couldn't describe, but the feeling pierced my chest. A small smile found his lips as he took in the two brothers. It was just a smile, a harmless smile, but there was a bitter hatred that was reflected in his crystal blue eyes. It didn't last long as he hid it quickly. "Why? Do you fear I may harm her?" His voice was deep and husky, almost like Killian's. He spoke in a manner that would terrify just about anyone. "I swear by the goddess, before you do, I will rip your heart out first." Killian was vibrating with identified rage. Leonardo chuckled, "It's a relief to know you inherited something from your cursed father. At least I will have something to look forward to before I end you." Leonardo spoke with a smile. But his words held so much intensity that they mirrored his feelings. Whatever hatred that existed between them was deeply rooted. I couldn't help but wrap my hands around my arms at the sudden coldness I felt. The spiteful energy between them was like an arrow piercing my heart. "Right before we murder you and your entire family, Leonardo," Morgan shot at him. Something in Morgan's words caused the smile on Leonardo's face to disappear. "It is Alpha Leonardo to you. A voice sounded from a distance. Killian and Morgan didn't swerve their heads to the direction the voice came from, almost as if they knew who it would be. I tilted my head a little, and Kaiser Black, moved closer to where Leonardo was. "Just look who we have here," Morgan muttered in a rage, a similar rage that Kaiser burned in. "It's good you are here because this will be my final warning. Stay out of my territory and anything that belongs to me. Or by the goddess, you will regret it." Killian spoke up. His grip on my wrist was secure. Kaiser's gaze moved from Killian's to me. His deep hazel eyes flashing with rage, he stepped forward, about to say something, but Leonardo gripped his arm tightly, stopping him. The air around us was growing intense by the second, as all four looked ready to snap at any moment and murder each other. Enough, alphas! Let's behave, this is the council's castle. An elder wolf, Walter, accompanied by a few other unfamiliar faces, moved closer to us. We are here for a meeting, not to murder each other. You are right. We are all here for a meeting and not to murder each other. Leonardo smiled, pausing, his eyes glancing at Killian and Morgan. Yet, he added. So, excuse us. Leonardo turned to his brother before walking past Killian, Morgan, and me. His eyes fell on me briefly before walking away, and so did Kaiser's. The elder and the others followed suit, entering the castle. Soon, Morgan left. We will be out soon. Please just stay with Gwen and be safe. He pecked my lips before leaving me. Gwen and I found a spot with a nice view of the White Mountains. We were seated quietly when I decided to ask a few questions about the men from earlier. The way she greeted Leonardo Black told me she knew him quite well. And since everyone was reluctant to speak about them in the pack, just maybe Gwen would. You do know him? The man from earlier. Leonardo Black? She asked, and I nodded sharply. She exhaled, looking quite unsure to speak. I do not know him personally, but his mother was a witch of the fortress before her death. She was a powerful witch, from an ancient ancestral clan. I furrowed my brows at the new information. But both Leonardo and Kaiser are wolves. She nodded. Although they have witch's blood in their veins, it's dormant as the magic is only inherited by the females in the family. Why does Killian hate them so much? I asked. Gwen's gaze left mine. It's a long story. There's really no need to bother yourself with the past. It was a tragedy, and remembering it only brings pain. She said softly, her eyes piercing into the far mountains. I sighed, not asking further questions. The more everyone refuses to talk about it, the more I want to know about the Blacks, whatever the past is, and why Killian hates them so much. After what seemed like forever, the meeting was over. Killian, Morgan, and Valerie joined Gwen and me. They were somewhat quiet, and the look on their faces was serious. Something serious must have happened in the meeting. But I don't ask anything. We got on our horses and exited through the council's gates. Killian, Morgan, and I left for the meeting with the neighboring pack while the witches returned to the pack. My blue eyes narrowed a little, taking my stance in front of Dina, a female warrior in the pack. I breathed in calmly, watching her gauge me. I tried not to cringe at the attention of the female warriors that were around us in the training field. It's been a few days since I began training with the female warriors of the pack. Killian didn't approve so easily, but I managed to make him give in. I was a little confident with the progress I had been making being trained by the Alpha, of course, that I wanted to know just how I'd manage against the female warriors. Even though I didn't have the non-human strength, speed, and the little perks of being a complete wolf, deep down I knew I would do well. I shook out of my thoughts when Dina launched herself at me. I ducked out of the way just in time. I could feel myself losing balance as she came in for another strike. I let gravity take me backward and rolled out of her way just in time to dodge another punch. I got to my feet. This was just like training with Killian. No, Killian's was far harsher and stricter. I could do this. I watched as she lunged forward, her arm extending to throw a punch. I pretended to turn left before rolling under her legs and launching myself at her back. I moved fast as I went for her vital joints, decapitating her. She was on the ground. Just when I was about to hit her again, she sent her leg to my stomach. I groaned, stumbling back onto my feet. This is going to hurt. I could feel my ribs aching already. She rushed at me with her speed, which was cheating by the way. I pulled my strength into one hand and punched her hard in her chest. She stumbled back, trying to breathe. I attacked her throat, and then her stomach, charging at her knee to cripple her to the ground. I knew she was recovering quite quickly, so I kept hitting her hard until she raised her hand in surrender. A triumphant smile found my lips, as I collapsed next to her, feeling my insides burn with pain, and sweat covering my body. I need a shower. Brielle helped me up on my feet. You did really well. You are getting better at this. I have no choice when my trainer is a ruthless alpha that keeps training me like he is preparing me for war, I rushed as we left the training field. Brielle chuckled beside me. Yeah, the alpha can get like that sometimes. I left her back at the training field, taking the shortcut through the woods back to the castle. I moved really fast, and I was almost at the castle when I felt a presence lurking around the woods. I gave a quick scan of my surroundings, but I couldn't see anyone. I kept moving, still feeling the sick presence around me, and worse, it kept drawing closer. It alarmed me, as it seemed to be behind me. Carefully, almost unnoticeable, I pulled out my dagger, and without hesitating, or even thinking twice, I swerved around just in time to throw it at whoever was behind me. As soon as the dagger left my grip, my eyes landed on an unfamiliar face. He was standing a short distance away from me. Just before the dagger could hit him, he lifted a finger, and my dagger stood in the air. His eyes gleamed with an emotion I couldn't fathom, making me gulp. He was a witch. Sheila's point of view. I narrowed my eyes as I watched the unfamiliar face step forward. He was wearing a black cloak over his clothes, his hair was as dark as the night, as it gleamed under the fading sun, and his eyes were a capturing pair of deep magenta. I sincerely apologize if I frightened you. It wasn't my intention. He released a small smile, grabbing the dagger floating in the air. I wasn't frightened. Just alarmed, I said as he stalked closer to me. Here. He held my dagger for me. I collected it. My eyes scanned him thoroughly. From the little trick he pulled earlier with the dagger, it was obvious he was a witch. But completely unfamiliar. I have never seen him in the witch's quarters. Was he not from around here? Ask him. Adie's voice echoed as if her presence was in front of my mind. I haven't seen you around here before. Who are you? I asked, placing my dagger in my boots. You are right. I am not from around here, I just came to visit. But I might stick around a little longer. He smiled again, deeply, revealing a nice dimple on the side of his cheek. I nodded at every word he said. But he still wouldn't tell me who he was. As if reading my thoughts, his lips broke again into a smile. I am Lorenzo, and a witch, as you know already. He chuckled. But you haven't told me who you are? I also haven't seen you around here before. The way he spoke was like he had been here before. But I refused to ask any more questions. I let out a smile. I am a Sheila. A loud voice completed from behind me. I sighed, smilingly. I didn't need to turn around to know it was Killian. His sweet musky scent was in the air already. That's my name, Sheila, I said to the new stranger. He smiled, looking past me to Killian, who was nearby. I turned to find Killian's eyes on the new guy. And so? Killian muttered with raised brows. Alpha Killian, Lorenzo called, again with a small smile. What are you doing here? Killian was next to me. Valerie called for me. It seems she needs my help with something of importance, regarding the crescent moon rising, Lorenzo said. It was about the curse. Well, welcome back, Killian said to him, snaking a hand around my waist. It's good to be back. I will take my leave now. His eyes moved from Killian to mine, his smile deepening amusingly. It's a pleasure to meet you, Sheila. I will most definitely see you around, he said before walking away. Who is he? I turned to Killian. His thick, perfect brows knitted together. He just told you, didn't he? I could see the sarcasm in there, as well as the jealousy laced in his tone. With each passing day, I could feel Killian's growing possessiveness of me. He always gets angry and jealous, especially whenever I am with the pack's male warriors. Frankly, I could understand him. I also feel that way, so possessive of him that I am struggling so hard not to show it. I don't think I can handle him being with someone else like before when he was with Thea. Even though I hated the fact that Thea was still here in the pack, there was nothing I could do about it. And Killian hasn't given me a reason to worry. In fact, he has stayed far away from her. I don't know what I would do if he ever betrayed me again with someone else. Well, we will just have to kill him, Adi grunted, making me chuckle internally. I really mean it, thanks to you, I couldn't ask more questions. I shook out of my thoughts, ignoring the silly words of my wolf. He is a witch of the coven. He went away some time back. But I guess he's back, Killian said, pulling me into his arms. He kissed my lips. We are having a meeting in an hour along with the witches. I want you to be there. He kissed me again. As you wish, Alpha. I kissed him back. We made our way inside, and I rushed to my chamber for a quick shower. I chose a green velvet dress from the rack and hitched it up, adjusting the off-the-shoulder sleeve that stopped at my elbows. I put on my ankle boots and brushed my hair neatly, letting my brown hair fall down my shoulders. I met up with Ria, Alan, and Morgan in the hallways. They were heading outside the castle. Ria and Alan had patrolling to do this evening. I walked with them as we reached the outside of the castle. I was about to say something when I felt an excruciating pain in my chest. I almost collapsed on the ground clutching my chest, but Morgan's firm hands snaked around me and caught me. Ria and Alan also rushed to my side. Luna! Ria was almost yelling. I groaned more at the pain choking my chest, burning me. What is happening to me? I asked, almost in tears. I kept writhing in agony. Morgan's hold on me became cold. He bore down on me deeply. I tightened my grip on him. Sheila, have you and my brother been together? I heard his voice over me. I was in so much pain that I couldn't speak. I only nodded my head. Morgan looked at me in horror, while Ria and Alan studied me. What are you guys staring at? I am in pain. My words sounded in a whisper. Slowly, the pain disappeared. I was panting so hard. Morgan helped me stand up. I could no longer feel the pain again. What happened? I asked. Even though 80 felt it, I had never experienced such kind of pain before. No one spoke. Morgan looked furious, on the verge of exploding, while Ria and Alan just stared at me nervously. What's wrong? I asked Alan when everyone refused to say something. Morgan stiffened, and a low growl escaped his throat. I turned to him. His expression looked like he had realized something, and his rage intensified as his eyes turned bright yellow. Killian. It's Killian. That stupid brother of mine is currently cheating on you, Sheila. Morgan roared. I was caught by surprise by what Morgan said. I looked at Ria and Alan. The pain you feel is the pain of betrayal. It is felt when your mate is cheating on you. I am sorry, Sheila, Ria said, looking at his feet. Slowly, everything they said sank in. Killian was cheating on me. Pain enveloped my heart. Somehow, I felt anguish. I know that for someone whose mate had a lover, I should have been used to his betrayal by now, but somehow, I felt things were different between us. Little by little, the pain morphed into rage. I felt absolute anger spreading through my body. It felt like my blood was beginning to boil at an extreme rate. 80 was already enraged. She was growling furiously in my head and wanted to murder someone. I couldn't even make out my emotions. I didn't know when I became this violent. I took some steps backwards. Ria wanted to follow me, but I insisted I be left alone. I stormed into the woods. I needed to release this intense rage I felt, or else I was really going to murder someone. Killian's point of view. I just took my bath. My hair and body were still wet. I tied a towel around my waist, roving to the clothing rack to pick out some clothes. I was so lost in thoughts that I didn't notice someone coming into my chamber. I snapped back to reality when a hand brushed through my arms. I looked up to see that it was Thea. Thea, why are you here? I asked her. She smiled temptingly. I noticed that she was in her silk robe. And I think she was not wearing anything underneath. Killian baby. I want you. She purred, moving closer to me. I moved around the room, brushing the back of my neck with my palm. Thea, please. Not now. We have a meeting with the witch soon. I told her. She pouted. Come on, Killian. I know you want me to. That's why I am here for you, she said. Her brown eyes gleamed darkly. She motioned to me, and with a finger, pushed me onto the bed. The towel around my waist fell to the cold floor. Slowly, her fingers untied her robe, and it fell to the floor. I was right. She stood in front of me. The smile on her lips deepened. I am going to make you feel good. I promise. Killian's point of view. I was on the bed, and Thea stood before me. If this had happened months ago, I swear I would have pulled her down on the bed and banged her non-stop. She was beautiful, no doubt. But something in me was different. She just wasn't appealing anymore to me. Everything's changed now that I have Sheila. And I don't want to hurt her. I never want to hurt my mate. I looked away, feeling somewhat disgusted. But I tried not to let it show. I also didn't want my rejection to hurt her. Cover yourself, Thea, and please leave. I told her. I was surprised when her body jumped on me, and then I felt her hand on me. I pushed her away, but she only firmed on top of me as she began to grind on top of me. She moaned in pleasure. Get her off us! Riker growled, and I grabbed her, lifting her off of me. I jolted up from the bed. I backed away, picking up my towel and tying it around on me. What, Thea? I told you to leave. I yelled at her. Thea looked surprised. She froze on the bed, her deep brown eyes on me for a short second. Then she was up. She grabbed her robe from the floor and covered herself. What is wrong with you, Killian? She yelled back in rage and frustration. You have never treated me like this. Why now? What did I do to deserve this? Her eyes began to shimmer with tears. Thea, don't start now, I began, but she cut me off. You've been acting this way because of her, right? She is the reason you are like this. She kept on yelling. I felt Riker growl angrily in my head. He didn't like that she addressed our mate with that word, and neither did I. Thea. Enough. I said, fighting hard not to yell at her. Shove her out now. Riker growled. Tell me the truth, Killian, are you having relation with her? Thea blurted, her eyes gathering more tears. When I didn't respond, the waters in those honey-iced gazes of hers rushed for freedom. Have you accepted her as your mate already? She asked, but I still didn't reply. She began crying. Are you going to discard me after using me to get the curse broken? She was sobbing hard. Are you going to abandon me on my own, knowing I have no one else but you? Her words pierced me. Even though I do not love her, I was concerned for her. I didn't want to use her or give her false hope, especially now that I want a future with Sheila, with my mate. I moved closer to Thea, but I didn't make the mistake of touching her. Thea, I really care about you. What are you going to say now? Hey? You care about me, but it's that tramp you want in your bed? Is that it? She rushed, wiping off the tears in her eyes. I growled loudly at her for addressing Sheila in that way. She ignored my growl. When are you going to realize Sheila is not right for you? Even her family is your enemy. She's not the one you need. I am, Killian. I am the one risking my life for you and the pack because I love you. You are my life. We are done here. Please leave my chamber, I said, and more tears gathered in her eyes. She stared at me silently. Without saying anything further, she left my chamber. I groaned, frustratedly, grabbing my clothes when the door pulled open again. "Come on, Thea, I told you to leave." I turned around to find Morgan pacing angrily towards me. He was beyond furious. Before I could ask him what was wrong, his fist collided harshly with my jaw. I groaned, stumbling a step back. "What is wrong with you?" I yelled at him, glaringly. "That's exactly what I want to know. What the is your problem?" He growled angrily. He was really upset. I haven't seen him this furious. "Would you tell me what the problem is?" I asked. "If you know you aren't yet over Thea, why did you sleep with Sheila?" Morgan yelled angrily. "That's none of your business, brother." I yelled back. "It is, if it concerns Sheila. How could you be so cruel, knowing full well that the moment you mate with your mate, she becomes partially connected to you and can sense your betrayal? You're a cheating!" he yelled. I froze. An image of Sheila in pain flashed through my mind. "What do you mean she could feel the pain of my betrayal?" I was dumbfounded. How on earth was that possible? "I haven't marked her yet, but she can feel the pain of betrayal." I grabbed a handful of my damp hair. "Just stop hurting her," he implored. "Please, it's enough already." Morgan walked to the door and exited. I felt my heart hammer hard against my chest just at the thought of Sheila thinking something actually happened between Thea and I. I dressed hurriedly, moving to her chamber, but she wasn't there. I looked for her around the castle, but I couldn't find her. I mind-linked some of the pack members, and some saw her heading into the woods. I sighed, making my way out of the castle. I stalked into the woods, using her scent to trail her. It led me deeper into the woods. I kept walking further. From a far distance, I saw my mate. She was in the middle of a clearing, firing arrows at tons of trees. Even from a distance, I could feel her rage. This was bad. I moved closer, as slowly as possible, to where Sheila was. Immediately, she pulled up an arrow and directed it at me. If I hadn't jumped out of the way, I swear it would have aimed for my heart. She didn't stop. She grabbed another arrow and shot at me. I dodged again, but it managed to graze my cheek. She went for another arrow and sent it at me again. She was aiming relentlessly to kill. I kept dodging her arrows until I was in front of her. I grabbed the bow from her and tossed it on the ground. "Sheila, please let's talk," I said, about to grab her, but she sent a punch at my face. I groaned, bringing my eyes back on her again, but she sent another one to my stomach. "Sheila, let's talk," I pleaded softly. It was as if she wasn't listening or didn't want to. She sent a few punches at me until I was finally able to grab one of her hands, and soon I held the other. I pushed her against the tree, and pulled both of her hands up above her head. "Stop! Please!" I said, begging. "Let go of me, cheating! I swear I will kill you!" She spat ragingly. I could tell she meant every word. "Listen to me." I pressed my body on her to subdue her further. "No. You listen to me. I can't believe you could betray me in this way." She started. I cut her off. "I didn't. Thea just came and enforced herself on you." She chuckled in rage, breaking free from my hold. She sent a leg to my stomach. I groaned at the impact. She was getting stronger. Where did all this strength come from? Sheila hit me again. At that moment, I realized I had trained a monster. That's exactly what happened. Thea came into my chamber and forced herself on me. But nothing happened between us. I pushed her away and sent her away. I explained, but Sheila released an angry scream, sending another punch my way. And I should applaud you for that, she said sarcastically, swinging her leg at me. But I grabbed it, lifting her and pushing her against the tree. I folded her legs around my waist. I held her body still and gripped her hands when they tried to hit me. Get away from me. She was wriggling against my strong hold on her body. But it was no use. Not until you listen first. I muttered, silencing her as she tried to speak again. I didn't even touch her. I swear on my life. I really didn't want to hurt you and I never want to. I love you, Sheila. I sighed. I love you. I said, hoping to the moon goddess that she would see my sincerity. She stopped wriggling, her dark blue eyes studying me with the same murderous intent, and before I could speak again, she grabbed my face and slammed her sweet lips on mine. Sheila's point of view, I didn't even touch her. I swear on my life. I really didn't want to hurt you and I never want to. I love you, Sheila. I love you, he said hurriedly, and I stopped wriggling. His last words echoed in the walls of my mind. My dark blue eyes were studying him. He isn't lying, Adi voiced in my mind, leaning closely. And you know how? I shot back at her. I can feel it, she whispered in my head. Well, I doubt that. He's a liar and a cheat, I said. But he's being honest now, Adi muttered, slowly exhausted. I was about to contradict her, but she shushed me up immediately. Just shut up and kiss him. My hands sneaked around his neck, and immediately, I brought my lips to his. Killian wrapped his hands around me, firmly kissing me back. After a while, we pulled away, panting heavily. I swear nothing happened between Thea and I. And nothing ever will, he whispered, kissing me again. I pecked his lips, my finger brushing off the small trail of blood that covered his face from my arrow that grazed him. Killian lowered me to the ground. Now that we are a little calmer, we should attend the meeting now. Everyone is probably waiting for us. Killian and I made our way back to the castle. We went straight to his office. Only Mason, Valerie, Gwen, and the new witch, Lorenzo, were in the office. Soon, Alan, Morgan, and Xavier walked in, along with Thea. She walked in with a smile and pulled her seat next to Killian's table. Her brown eyes met mine, and she released a devilish smile. Gosh, I hated this. I was seated next to Gwen, and behind me was Lorenzo. After everyone had settled in, Valerie started first. We have made some progress with the spells for the Crescent ritual, and Enzo will be helping us out. The witches had started to make preparations regarding the crescent moon rising, which was a month away. That was the only chance Killian and the pack had to break the curse, otherwise they would remain stuck with it. I looked over at Killian. He wore a troubled expression as everyone in the room listened to Valerie. All right, Valerie, is there anything we must do? Killian asked. Valerie shook her head. Unfortunately, there's nothing, Alpha. All we need is the gifted one. She glanced to Thea's right. Thea's smile deepened, and her gaze drifted to Killian. You don't have to worry, Killian. Whatever the witches need from me, I will do it. All I want is to save you and the pack. Thea said, her eyes glistening with tears. I rolled my eyes at her acting. She was a drama queen. That's good then, Valerie spoke, and explained everything. The witches were going to perform a spell tonight with the blood of the gifted one. She called it some kind of cleansing spell that needed to be done on the wolves. Sheila's point of view, I didn't even touch her. I swear on my life. I really didn't want to hurt you and I never want to. I love you, Sheila. I love you, he said hurriedly, and I stopped wriggling. His last words echoed in the walls of my mind. And one last thing, Valerie drew our attention when we were almost done. On the night of the crescent moon, the witches and I will be divided into two groups. One will be at the witches' quarters while the other will be at the pack house performing the mating ritual. I creased my brows. A mating ritual? My eyes fell on Killian, and his gaze was on Valerie's, just as confused as I was. In fact, everyone's gaze was on Valerie. What do you mean? Killian questioned. A mating ritual must be conducted between the cursed Alpha and the gifted one. It is part of the ritual of breaking the curse. The gifted one must bear your mark, thereby linking her to you and the wolves. I couldn't breathe. My eyes fell on Thea, and her eyes were on me, regarding me with a sinister smile. I listened to every word that Valerie said, and each word pierced deep into my soul just at the thought of Killian and Thea officially mating, and she would bear his mark. I could barely think straight during the rest of the meeting. I could feel worried eyes sent my way. As soon as the meeting ended, I went straight to my chamber. I felt a banging ache in my head, and no matter how I tried to get some rest, I just couldn't. I felt angry and restless at the same time. I couldn't stay in my chamber for another second, so I changed out of my dress and into my training clothes. I wore brown leather pants and a brown leather vest. I pulled my hair up in a ponytail and left my chamber. It was already dark outside. By now the witches must have begun the cleansing spell with Thea's blood. I went into the woods and trained for a while, but training alone was no fun. I still couldn't release the rage and frustration in my bones. I went to the pack's training field. In training, I met some warriors, both male and female. I joined them. We trained for hours. It didn't even bother me how fast time flew. I didn't care. I fought against some male warriors. I managed to win over a few while sustaining a few broken rib cages. But I'll live. It was better to bathe in the pain than in the frustration and rage that threatened to kill me. I trained with the warriors till early dawn. Even after so many hours of training, I didn't feel exhausted. My mind was clear, and though my body was aching, everything felt fine. I walked back to the castle, and quietly made my way to my chamber. I jerked the door open and entered. As soon as I swerved around, my eyes fell on Killian. He was waiting for me. I sighed. He was the last person I wanted to see at the moment. What are you doing here? I stalked to my dressing table and removed my boots. Sheila, Killian began, but I put my hand in the air. You don't have to say anything, Killian. Frankly, I don't want to hear anything you want to say. None of these is your fault, and I am not mad at you. I said, stripping off my training clothes. I grabbed my silken robe and put it on my body. I meant every word I told him. I was not mad at him. None of these were his fault, so it'll be useless to be mad at him. It wasn't his fault he was cursed or that his father was a vile monster or that I wasn't the one he needed. And I certainly won't be mad at him for doing whatever it takes to free the pack and himself from this curse. My rage and frustration stemmed from the harsh and bitter reality that Thea would always be the one he needed, and even worse, once the curse was broken, there would be no way to remove her from the pack because she would be mated to him and would bear his mark, which was supposed to be mine. I felt my eyes sting with tears, but I fought it hard. Killian came to me. I am truly sorry. I could see the pain and sadness in his eyes. It made the tears I fought so hard to fight escape my eyes. I know. I brushed off the tears from my eyes, stepping away. I need to shower and get some rest, I told him. I just wanted to be alone. He could see that, and thankfully, he nodded, placing a kiss on my forehead. I took my bath and retired for the night. When I woke up, it was already bright outside. I woke up with a banging ache, drenched in my own sweat from last night. I had a nightmare again. It was the same, and this time it drove me crazier than I already was. It was torturous and frustrating. I showered and got dressed quickly. I left my chamber without even having breakfast. I was tired and frustrated, and it was time I asked for help. I went to Valerie's room, but she wasn't in it. In fact, no one was in. I left the castle and went straight to the witch's quarters on the east side of the park. I walked to the witch's spell room in search of Valerie. But instead, I found Lorenzo. He was wearing his black cloak and was in the corner of the room. It seemed like he was in the middle of a spell as soon as he saw he was up on his feet. Sheila, I apologize for barging in. I came looking for Valerie. She had some matters to tend to outside the pack, he said, studying me briefly. What it is, I could help. Perhaps he could. I shut my eyes, sucking in the pain in my head. I'm in dire need of some help, Lorenzo. Sheila's point of view. I am in dire need of some help, Lorenzo, I said, rushing to where he was. He led me to the large table in the middle of the room, helping me to sit. You don't look well, he noted, staring intently at me. I didn't feel so good. Aside from the banging ache in my head, I felt a growing heat in my stomach. I just have a hammering ache. But that's not why I am here, I said. Enzo pulled his hand back to cup my face, and slowly it moved to my temple. My eyes pierced into his magenta eyes, and slowly the ache in my head began to vanish. He removed his hand when he was done. Thank you. So, what is the other reason you are here? He asked. I rubbed my palms against each other. I wasn't sure where to begin, that wouldn't make me sound insane. So, I decided to start with the dreams I have been having, and then I told him about my childhood, which I can't seem to remember. He kept his gaze fixed on me until I was done. If these dreams are somehow memories I have forgotten, then I want to remember. I want to remember everything I have forgotten. If these dreams were memories from your childhood, did you ever consider that maybe it was for the best that you couldn't remember anything? He asked me and I fell silent. I did. Ever since I began having these dreams, I have considered that thought. I don't know what I'd do if these dreams were memories of mine. That would mean everything was real. The fights, chaos, and deaths would mean it all happened, and that woman, the one my younger self seemed to recognize as my mother, was really dead. I felt fear travel down my spine and confusion soon found me. If that woman was my mother, and she was a witch, then who was I? And why can't I find my father in any of these? I didn't know when tears rolled from my eyes. I felt Enzo's warm hands on me. Even though remembering my past might bring me more pain, I want to remember it all, I said. Lorenzo nodded. The skin around his eyes knitted. All right. If that is what you want. He was on his feet. He moved to the wooden shelf at the end of the room, with his woolen black cloak brushing the floor. When he returned to me, there was nothing in his hands except a small black stone. He handed it to me. I looked at it with raised brows. You will need it, he said, crouching next to where I was seated. What I am going to do will cause you immense pain. It will feel like someone is prying into the depths of your soul with a piercing dagger. That stone won't take away the pain, but it will lessen it, he said. His every word made my heart pound. But I wasn't going to back out now. I could bear the pain as long as I could get my answers. Lorenzo was in front of me, his face inches apart from mine. He pulled his large thumb to my chin, lifting my head so I could stare deep into his eyes. Soon, both of his hands were positioned on my face, cupping my face. His deep magenta was boring right through my crystal blue eyes. I could feel my heartbeat rising. Breathe. As Lorenzo calmed me, his eyes began to glow brightly. It was as if the blinding light was piercing through my eyes. His lips began to move. I couldn't hear what he was saying because the next thing I felt was brutal pain. Valerie's point of view. I was on my way back to the pack. I had to visit the witch's village within the capital walls of North Central, and maybe I just needed to clear my head. To think clearly. These days, there were a lot of happenings around the pack that I just couldn't understand. Last night was one of those strange things that I couldn't understand. I sighed, tugging harder on the reins of the horse as we were almost at the pack's borders. What is it that borders you? Gwen, one of the coven witches, asked beside me on her horse. Her inquiry pierced the depths of my soul. Everything seemed to be bothering me. I can feel it. There is a looming darkness lurking within the pack, it's over everyone. Strange things happened that I couldn't explain, starting with the death of Rowan. He was murdered by a witch within the pack's territory. A witch that didn't belong to the coven. Somewhere deep down, I know that whoever murdered him was still within us. The witches and I haven't stopped investigating, and whosoever the witch was, we will unmask the witch. And there was another thing keeping me awake at night, Sheila Colasso. There was more to her than anyone knew. She had a mighty aura around her that no she-wolf could possess, even being of alpha blood. I just can't drift my thoughts from the magical door to the energy I felt the night Killian went on a rampage and then the night she found the stone. The energy that caused that destruction that night and brutally murdered the Dark Circle army wasn't from the power of the stone. It was something else. Something I had witnessed before, from the night of the tragedy. The night everything turned for the worse, and the Dark Circle managed to get their hands on the child that was spoken of on the crystal stones in the fortress, the one destined to save the supernatural realm from the greatest force of evil that would be awoken from the chaos of darkness. Whatever, or whoever that evil was, the prophecy didn't say, but the prophesied child was one of us. She was the daughter of one of the Crystal Fortress head witches, Fiona Black. A powerful witch from an ancient clan also, Luna of the Black Blood Pack, and mother to the Black Blood Pack's alphas, Alpha Leonardo and Kaiser Black. Even at a young age, I still remember that night like it was yesterday. The brutal deaths of the Dark Circle army that was led by Alpha Nell Reed were identical to those of the Dark Circle army that was murdered that night by an unknown power. I couldn't deny it. At some point, there was a part of me that believed the Alpha's mate was the source of that unknown power. A greater part of me hoped that she was her, the prophesied child that Nell Reed took that night. No one knew what happened to her, we had no idea if she was murdered or not, as the Dark Circle wanted to eliminate the very force that could stand against them. But if Sheila was truly that child and the sister to both Alpha Leonardo and Kaiser Black, then they would have recognized her, but it felt like they didn't, or maybe they did well to hide it. Leonardo was good at that. But there was no way I could ask them this, they didn't trust me like they did before. After the night that Fiona was murdered protecting her daughter, I joined Killian's pack, and Leonardo despised me for it. The hatred between Killian's pack and the Black Blood Pack was so immense that I feared nothing could put an end to the enmity. If only they could realize that everyone was a victim of Killian's father, Nell Reed's, cruelty. Just as much as the Blacks lost Fiona, the late Alpha and their sister, that night, so did Killian. He also lost a brother. Valerie. I shook abruptly, my purple eyes shifting to Gwen. She had a worried look on her face. As a channeler, she could feel the unsettledness within me and it worried her. I am fine, I said, realizing we'd crossed into Killian's territory. I sighed again. After the night Sheila retrieved the Phoenix Stone, my suspicion grew stronger. So, I did a spell on her to check if there was an ounce of witch's magic within her. But there wasn't. The spell informed her that she was a full-blooded wolf without any magic within her. The spell could never lie, but if my suspicion was right, there was a chance that the witch side of her hadn't been awoken. She hasn't had her awakening yet, and her powers could still be dormant. But for how long? We moved on our horses, reaching the castle. From afar, my eyes fell on Thea. She was just entering the castle. She was the last cause of my unsettledness. Last night, the witches and I performed a spell with the blood of the gifted one, Thea. It was supposed to be some sort of cleansing ritual for the wolves before the crescent moon night. But something wasn't right. Being the gifted one, blessed by the moon goddess, I could no doubt feel the strong energy in her blood. There was supposed to be a blood moon in the night sky as a result of the ritual we performed with the gifted one's blood. But there wasn't. That was the highlight of the ritual, yet nothing happened. And with the crescent moon almost upon us, I can't help but wonder if Killian truly has found the gifted one, the only one who can break his curse. Sheila's point of view. My eyes pierced right through the soul of Lorenzo's deep magenta eyes, which burned brightly. I could hear his voice muttering chants in a language I had never heard before. He kept muttering coherently, his soft voice filtering into my ears, invading my mind, and echoing within the walls of my soul. I groaned in pain. It was hurting, badly hurting. It was like a sharply pointed sword was pushing its way into the deepest, darkest cave of my soul. Lorenzo didn't stop chanting, his large hands cupping my face even tighter, as he forced his blazing gaze into mine. I gripped the black stone in my hands as more pain punctured my chest, aligning with the burning heat on the lower side of my stomach. It was as if there was a merge deep within me, and my crystal blue eyes still stared into Lorenzo's. His voice and chanting had completely consumed my entire being. I kept on wriggling in pain. My hand collapsed on Lorenzo's shirt, which I clutched tightly like I was holding on to my very life. My eyes began to burn brightly as parts of my memories from Killian's pack to my old pack began to flash through my mind. My screams and cries didn't stop, and so did Lorenzo's. He continued chanting, never letting go of me. I could feel my body burn with my skull like I was literally on fire. My knees began to weaken. My entire body turned numb. My eyes were spinning around the spell room and my head was lighter than a feather. I was numb to any other pain, but I could feel the warm blood that was flowing from my nose. Enzo. I badly wanted to say his name aloud, but I just couldn't. No matter how much I tried. I didn't have the strength for it. I gripped tighter to his shirt, my vision completely failing me. Before I could suck in another breath, my numb body fell into Lorenzo's arms. The last thing I heard was his voice whispering my name till it faded and I lost it to the darkness swallowing me. It was like I was drowning in deep water. It was unbearably hot. Or better still, my body was burning hot. I jerked my eyes open and instantly a sweet, soothing, and calming scent invaded my nostrils. I moaned calmly. It didn't take away the sudden weakness I felt nor the burning pain in my body, yet somehow, almost magically, it calmed me. I pulled my eyes from the blank air, gasping back to reality. I yanked my body up. Immediately, large arms covered me, embracing me. It's all right. Breathe, Sheila, the voice kept on saying, rubbing my back in circles while stroking my hair. The words and actions also calmed me. I sighed, weakly, pulling away to meet Lorenzo's worried eyes on me. You are back, he muttered gently, a wave of relief settling on his shoulders. I breathed in. I felt sick to my bones. My eyes scanned the room and it was so unfamiliar. We were no longer at the witch spell room. I was on a bed in a chamber. Lorenzo pulled away from me, moving to the small, red candles that were burning around me, perfectly arranged around me. Their burning glow illuminated the room. He muttered a short chant, and the flames died. The velvet draperies on the window pulled open by themselves to allow some sunlight in. I groaned, internally, a familiar pain gutting my stomach, and my body so weak. Where am I? My soft, weak voice sounded. Lorenzo turned to look at me. You are in my chamber. You needed some rest. I nodded subconsciously to his words. My eyes suddenly went wide. I pulled my hands to both sides of my head. What happened? I asked, almost breathless from the weakness and discomfort that cowered in my bones. I swept through my thoughts, more like my memories, but everything felt the same. I couldn't remember anything. My eyes went up to Lorenzo, who was studying me quietly. I can't remember anything, I whispered, trying to hold my voice. I am sorry. But there is no way I could pry any deeper. Lorenzo moved closer to me. I tried to break through the walls of your mind to reach the memories that have been forgotten, but I couldn't. So, it's impossible to remember. I asked him. No, it's not. He spoke softly, moving closer again. Your memories of your childhood were intentionally locked up, Sheila. What? I was speechless. I tried to understand what he was saying, but it was difficult to do in my weak state. Oh goddess, what was wrong with me? My bones felt so weak, my body held so much pain, and the burning heat within me kept growing. I forced my mind from the growing pains to what was more important. My memories. Someone intentionally made me forget my childhood? But who could that person be? The only one that came to mind was the person that hated me more than anything. My father. But why? What was it about my childhood he wanted so desperately for me to forget? I was back on my feet. I took only a few steps before my body betrayed me. I lost my balance, almost crashing on the floor, but Lorenzo caught me in his arms, taking me back to the bed. Tell me in plain words, Lorenzo, what happened to my memories? His deep magenta held mine. The magic surrounding the walls of your mind is very powerful, Sheila. I tried to make a crack in your mind, to break the wall imprisoning them, but I can't, at least not without killing you in the process, he said to me, placing my head on a pillow. You are so weak. Wait right here. I will be back. He stood up and rushed out of the chamber. The growing heat in my stomach was getting worse, making me squirm in pain. I couldn't understand my body. All I felt was a raging need within me. What is wrong with me, 80? I groaned in pain. Killian. Find Killian. She was suffering from a similar pain in my stomach. Please, Sheila. She sounded worse off than I did. I pushed my feet to the floor, pulling myself up. I groaned in pain, moving to the door. I left Lorenzo's chamber. It was within the witch's quarters. I left there and began heading back to the castle. In my state, it was as torturous. Soon, I reached the castle, noticing the hooded dark eyes the male warriors had on me. I could even hear a low growling. Thankfully, Ria spotted me and rushed to my side, pulling me into her arms. Sheila. You are burning hot. What happened to you? She led me towards my chamber. Killian. I need Killian. I recognized the raging need within me. It wanted Killian. Ria looked like she wanted to mutter something, but she suddenly stopped halfway, her eyes inspecting me. She placed a hand on my stomach, and I growled in pain. It was as if her touch burned my body further. Her hand flung up to her lips. Oh, my goddess, Sheila, you are going into heat, Ria exclaimed. My blue eyes widened as she spoke. What? I peered at her through my crystal blue eyes, shocked. But as the writhing continued, I curled more in pain on the bed, thrashing on the bed. Ria shot up from the bed, about to touch me, but stopped. I will find Alpha Killian immediately, she said before rushing out of the chamber, leaving me in my pain. The pain was getting more unbearable by the passing second, and the intense need to have Killian by my side just kept getting stronger. The air around me in the chamber became intense. It was suffocating me. It was as if my entire body and soul were on fire. I had to leave. I got up from my bed and left my chamber. I used the back door of the castle and exited through it. The sun was shining brightly from the sky, its scorching heat burning me as it kept following my trail into the woods. I kept moving aimlessly without direction. I rolled out into a large meadow I hadn't visited in Killian's pack. Up, ahead was a stream. I sighed with contentment. Just what I needed. I was in dire need of some water. I felt so parched, and maybe the water could do a little to quell the heat within me. I dragged my entire body closer, my weakened legs couldn't go any further as warriors from the pack surrounded me. Their eyes were dark with wish. I wobbled, about to stumble to the ground, but mighty hands wrapped around my waist, supporting my legs to stand. Tingling sparks shot through my burning skin. Killian! I breathed out in relief at where his hands touched me. Killian pulled me up to meet his gaze. I am here, love. I am here.